The dream of first contact. For centuries, humanity imagined the moment. A shared language of mathematics, a burst of radio waves, a handshake across the stars. We prepared protocols, linguistic banks, cultural exchange packages, all built on the assumption that sound, structured and logical, would be our bridge. We never considered the bridge itself might be the danger. We never imagined silence could be the only safe path. This is the story of Protocol Zero, the day we met the visitations, and the terrifying reason they refused to speak. It began with grace, not conquest. Their vessel didn't rip through the sky. It appeared. One moment, empty orbit. The next, a structure of impossible geometry, shimmering like spun obsidian under starlight. It radiated no heat, emitted no signals, projected no threat, just presence, utterly silent. Panic flared, of course. Militaries scrambled, governments convened, but the ship did nothing. These passed. Then a week. The tension was a physical thing, a weight pressing down on the planet. Finally, a single, seamless aperture opened on the vessel's underside. No ramp, no lights, and they emerged. Humanity held its breath. Were they insectoid, bioluminescent, tentacled? The reality was strangely elegant. Tall, slender bipeds, their limbs elongated and jointed in ways that suggested both fragility and immense tensile strength. Their skin wasn't skin. It resembled polished, deeply colored stone. Emerald greens, sapphire blues, volcanic reds, catching the sunlight in dazzling, shifting patterns. They had no visible mouths, no nostrils, just large, multifaceted eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They descended not on thrusters, but by simply stepping off their ship and falling with impossible slowness, like feathers in water, landing silently on the designated neutral ground in Geneva's expanded UN Plaza. And then the silence deepened. They stood, utterly still, radiating a profound calm. Our first contact team, sweating in pressurized suits, activated every standard protocol. Audio broadcasts boomed greetings in thousands of languages, basic phonetics, mathematical primes, chemical composition of water. Visual displays flashed complex pictograms, star maps pinpointing Earth and their origin point, a mystery we still haven't solved. Sequences of universal constants, radio pulses, laser modulations, even carefully modulated scent emitters releasing non-threatening organic compounds. Nothing. The visitors remained statuesque, their multifaceted eyes sweeping the crowds, the buildings, the sky, but giving no indication of comprehension or response. It was as if our frantic attempts were static to them, irrelevant noise. Frustration mounted. Fear began to curdle the initial awe. Were they ignoring us? Was this a display of superiority? Or were we simply too primitive to register? Then, on the third day of their silent vigil, one of the blue-skinned visitors shifted. It wasn't a step. It was a ripple, starting deep within its stone-like torso, flowing outwards along its limbs. Its head tilted, almost imperceptibly. And then, it moved. Not like walking, like flowing water given sudden, sharp definition. A limb snapped out, not in aggression, but in a precise arc, fingers tracing complex geometries in the air. A leg swept backwards, the body folding and unfolding with a speed and grace that defied momentum. It was dance, but not dance as we know it. It was mathematics made kinetic, physics expressed through controlled, impossible motion. It was breathtaking, alien, and undeniably communication. A ripple went through the other visitors. Soon, others joined. Reds wove complex spirals around the blues, greens executed sharp, angular counterpoints. They weren't interacting with us. They were interacting around us, a silent, mesmerizing ballet of light and movement. Linguists and xenobiologists scrambled. Was this ritual? Art? Language? Every sensor trained on them recorded the intricate patterns. Limb angles, velocity vectors, sequences of pauses and bursts. Supercomputers began mapping the kinetoglyphs, searching for syntax, grammar, meaning. Hope flickered. We had found their language. It was kinetic, visual. We started designing responsive drones, light projectors, even training human volunteers in rudimentary mimicry of the movements. We called it the dance of understanding. We were wrong. We were dangerously, catastrophically wrong. Because the silence wasn't voluntary. It was essential. The first incident was small, almost dismissed. During a particularly vigorous sequence by a trio of red visitors, nearby microphones picked up a faint, subsonic thrumming. Simultaneously, a portable gravimeter used by a physics team monitoring the landing zone glitched. Its readings spiked erratically for 3 seconds, then returned to normal. The team blamed faulty equipment. Then, it happened again. And again. The correlation was undeniable. Specific, intense sequences of the visitor's kinetic communication coincided with localized, minute distortions in gravity and space-time. The thrumming wasn't just sound. It was a fundamental vibration resonating through the fabric of reality itself.
Panic shifted from political to existential. The most powerful sensors we had, gravitational wave detectors, quantum entanglement monitors, even repurposed particle accelerator arrays, were trained on Geneva. What they revealed was terrifying. The visitors' movements weren't just movements. They were incredibly sophisticated manipulations of their own physiology, generating focused sonic frequencies far below and above human hearing. These weren't random vibrations. They were phonemes, syllables, perhaps even words of their true spoken language. But these sonic pulses didn't just carry meaning, they carried energy. Energy that interacted violently with the Higgs field, the underlying quantum foam that gives particles mass and shapes space-time. Every attempted vocalization, even the faintest hum generated by an intense gesture, was like throwing a pebble into the pond of reality, creating microscopic, unstable ripples. Gravity wells fluctuated, time dilation effects, nanoseconds but measurable, flickered around them. The potential was horrifyingly clear. Sustained or sufficiently powerful vocalizations could tear holes in space-time. A scream could unravel a city. A conversation could crack a planet. This explained everything. Their ship's silent arrival, their refusal to engage with our audio transmissions, their reliance on kinetic dance. It wasn't choice, it was survival. Their very biology was a weapon of mass destruction turned inward. Speaking was an act of catastrophic violence. Their kinetic language was a desperate adaptation, a way to communicate without unleashing sonic apocalypse. They weren't ignoring our attempts to make them speak, they were protecting us from the consequences. The realization was a cold knife in the heart of first contact. We stood on the brink of understanding, surrounded by beings who literally could not speak without risking annihilation. The dance of understanding wasn't the answer, it was the source of the problem. The bridge we sought wasn't just unbuilt, its very construction threatened to collapse the canyon walls. Humanity faced an impossible paradox. How do you talk to someone who must remain silent? The clock was ticking. The microfractures in space-time were accumulating. We needed a language without sound, without dangerous vibration. We needed a miracle of silence. And deep within the archives of human adaptation, forgotten by the clamor of spoken words, lay the key.
The microfractures were multiplying. Like hairline cracks in an overstressed dam, the localized space-time distortions triggered by the visitor's kinetic speech were becoming more frequent, more pronounced. A research drone, hovering too close during a complex green visitor's sequence, simply flickered. One moment it was there, transmitting data. The next, it was gone. Not destroyed, but erased from that point in space-time. A section of reinforced concrete near the plaza perimeter developed a sudden, impossible brittleness and crumbled to dust under its own weight. The air itself shimmered in localized pockets,
bending light in nauseating ways. The message was horrifyingly clear. The visitor's presence was becoming incompatible with Earth's structural integrity. We weren't facing invasion, we were facing accidental, incremental unraveling. Protocol Zero shifted from curiosity to critical containment. Evacuations began around Geneva. Planetary defense grids, useless against this non-aggression, powered up in grim futility. The beautiful, deadly dance continued, the visitors radiating a palpable sense of urgency? Frustration? We couldn't tell. The kinetic language remained impenetrable, a code written in motion we couldn't crack fast enough. Despair set in. How do you reason with a storm? How do you plead with an earthquake? The breakthrough didn't come from the astrophysicists monitoring the quantum tremors, nor the linguists dissecting movement algorithms. It came from Dr. Eris Thorne, lead researcher at the Luna-based Institute for Nonverbal Communication. Thorne, profoundly deaf since birth, had spent their life immersed in the complex, spatially rich world of sign languages. Watching the high-resolution feeds of the visitors' kinetic communication, Thorne saw something others missed. Amid the breathtaking, large-scale movements were subtle, recurring patterns, precise finger articulations, minute shifts in weight distribution, specific angles of the head. These weren't just stylistic flourishes. They bore a startling resemblance to the foundational elements of tertiary sign languages, complex systems like American Sign Language or Nicaraguan Sign Language, which use hand shapes, locations, movements, and facial expressions to convey abstract concepts. While the visitors' large kinetic dance generated the dangerous subsonics, these smaller, precise gestures seemed ancillary, clean, silent. Thorne's hypothesis was radical, terrifyingly simple. The large kinetic dance was their attempt at suppressing their innate sonic language, a complex physical damper. But the small, precise gestures, those were their intended communication struggling to emerge through the noise of their own biology. They weren't trying to speak with their whole bodies, they were trying to sign with their hands and heads, trapped beneath the necessity of constant full-body vibration control. Their true language wasn't kinetic dance. It was a form of sign. They saw us gesturing, pointing, using crude pantomime, and likely assumed we were attempting the same. But our chaotic, unsystematic gestures were as meaningless to them as their dance was to us.
Implementing Thorne's idea was a desperate gamble. We needed to prove we could understand their silent core. The UN First Contact team, operating from a hardened bunker kilometers away, devised a plan. Using high-fidelity projectors, they beamed focused, magnified images onto the plaza floor, not of spoken words or complex math, but of human hands. Specifically, hands forming the most fundamental elements of International Sign, IS, a simplified cross-linguistic system. Pointing to self, human, pointing to them, visitor, open palms, peace, no harm, flat hand moving forward, come, hands clasped, together, a slow circling motion over the chest, understand? Alongside, they projected simple, stylized animations mimicking the smallest, most frequently observed finger articulations and head tilts of the visitors themselves. The effect was instantaneous and electrifying. The visitors froze mid-movement. Their multifaceted eyes, usually sweeping panoramically, locked onto the projected hands with laser focus. A collective stillness fell over them, deeper than their initial silence. Then the blue visitor who had first danced stepped forward. Slowly, deliberately, it raised its own long, multi-jointed hand. Its fingers, like polished gemstones, flexed. It formed a shape startlingly close to the projected IS sign for understand, not a mimicry, but a parallel expression. Simultaneously, it gave a minute, precise tilt of its head, a gesture we'd recorded hundreds of times but dismissed as insignificant. On the projectors, our system flagged it, a match for a recurring glyph in their small movement lexicon, tentatively tagged as query clarity. Communication. Pure, silent, vibration-free communication. Tears streamed down faces in the bunker.
Thorne, watching remotely, signed a single word: dialogue. We responded immediately. Projected hands signed, yes, understand, safe. We added the animation of their head tilt, tagged query. The blue visitor remained still for a long moment. Then it signed back, combining its own finger shapes with subtle head movements. Our computers, primed with Thorne's analysis and the fast dataset of observed microgestures, began parsing relief, danger, your world, fragile. Our voice breaks.
The dam broke, not with sound, but with silent, rapid-fire signing. The visitors, abandoning the dangerous large-scale dampening dances almost entirely, focused solely on their hands, fingers, and subtle head articulations. It was fluid, complex, incredibly fast, a true language with syntax and grammar built on spatial relationships and minute motions. Our computers struggled, but Thorne and a rapidly assembled team of human sign language experts, deaf and hearing, worked furiously, building a translation matrix in real time. The story they conveyed was one of tragic biology and desperate hope. They were the Kaleni. Their species evolved on a planet bathed in exotic particle radiation that subtly altered their cellular structure. Their vocal organs, designed to manipulate complex sound waves for communication in a dense atmosphere, became, over millennia, tuned to frequencies that resonated catastrophically with the quantum vacuum fluctuations underpinning space-time itself. Speaking became synonymous with destruction. Their civilization nearly collapsed in its adolescence, racked by accidental sonic catastrophes. Survival demanded radical adaptation. They developed two layers of communication: the large full-body kinetic dampening sequences, KDS, the dance, which generated counter vibrations to suppress and contain the dangerous sonic potential of their internal biology, acting like a physical muzzle. And beneath that, hidden within the KDS, was their true language, soma sign, a hyper-advanced form of gestural communication using precise, low-energy movements of extremities and subtle body shifts. They became a species of profound silence, masters of contained expression. Their voyage wasn't conquest, it was a quest. They detected our electromagnetic noise, radio, TV, radar, a cacophony they interpreted as a species somehow immune to the dangers of sonic space-time destabilization. They came seeking knowledge, sanctuary perhaps, or allies against a universe where their very existence was a hazard. Their refusal to speak wasn't disdain, it was the ultimate act of respect. Their dance wasn't hello, it was the straining of their self-imposed shackles.
The revelation reshaped everything. Protocol Zero was born that day, not from a committee, but from necessity. The standard first contact package, audio greetings, linguistic primers, became obsolete, potentially lethal. In its place, we built the foundation of silent dialogue, FSD. It combined advanced soma sign interpretation using AI and human experts to decode and encode the Kaleni's subtle gestures, universal gesture primitives, developing a core library of simple, unambiguous signs based on spatial relationships and basic concepts, building towards mutual linguistic development. Biometric containment fields, portable localized dampening fields reverse-engineered from studying the Kaleni KDS, deployed around interaction zones, acting as an extra safety net against accidental vocalizations. Non-vocal environmental translation, using light projections, haptic feedback suits, and direct neural interfaces, where safe and consented, to convey complex concepts without sound. The Kaleni didn't stay long. Their biology made Earth a constant, unacceptable risk. But before their obsidian ship slid back into the void, they shared the core principles of soma sign and the theoretical framework of their dampening fields. They also shared a warning. The universe is vast, and species evolve under wildly different constraints. Sound might be common, but it isn't universal. Silence might not be emptiness, but sanctuary. The true danger isn't always the weapon aimed. Sometimes it's the word unthinkingly spoken. Today, Protocol Zero stands as humanity's first truly universal contingency. Embedded in every starship, every deep space probe, every frontier colony hub is the FSD module. It trains crews in gesture primitives, it scans for non-audio communication, it stands ready to dampen unknown energies. We learned the hard way that first contact isn't just about understanding what is said, but how it is said, and the terrifying physics that might underpin it. We met beings whose hello was a whisper that could shatter reality, and whose true voice was found not in sound, but in the eloquent silence of moving hands under a shared sky. The Kalani taught us that the most profound conversations sometimes require the world to hold its breath. And in that silence, across the gulf of biology and star systems, we found not monsters, not gods, but fellow travelers, signing desperately against the dark. Our place in the universe isn't defined by the noise we make, but by the connections we forge, sometimes word by careful, silent word.